The Beaches podcast is going to give you everything you want to know about a beach before you go there. I hope you enjoy the show. Be sure to check out our website, www.sandee.com. Without further ado, let's get into the show.
All right, everybody, buckle up. We are headed to the Galapagos Islands today.
Ooh, exciting.
For a deep dive
Yeah.
into this incredible place.
Absolutely.
And this was actually a special request from one of our listeners.
So cool.
Who really wanted us to focus on three things.
Okay.
The unique wildlife of the Galapagos.
Of course.
The incredible volcanic landscapes.
Yeah.
And the really important conservation efforts happening there.
Super important.
So get ready because we're going to see some pretty incredible creatures.
Yeah.
We're going to learn about how these islands even came to be.
Millions of years in the making.
And we're going to talk about what's being done to protect this really special place.
It's a gem.
So to kick things off, let's talk about the wildlife.
Okay.
You know, whenever I think about the Galapagos, the first thing that pops into my head are those giant tortoises.
Oh, yeah. Iconic.
They're like the poster children for the islands.
Definitely.
But there's so much more to discover.
So much more.
Right.
Right. The Galapagos are like a living laboratory of evolution.
Okay, so explain that.
Well, because the islands are so isolated, hundreds of miles from mainland Ecuador,
Yeah.
the plants and animals there have evolved in really unique ways.
So they're totally different from anything you'd find on the mainland.
Exactly. They've had to adapt to this very specific environment, and that's led to a ton of what we call endemic species.
Endemic species.
Yeah.
That sounds like a science word.
It kind of is, but it's actually pretty simple.
Okay.
It just means that these species are found nowhere else on Earth.
Whoa. So you're telling me if I want to see a blue-footed booby,
Mm-hmm.
I got to go to the Galapagos.
You got it.
No other option.
Nope.
That's wild.
It is. And it's not just the boobies. You've got marine iguanas.
I've heard of those.
They're the only lizards in the world that can swim in the ocean.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
A swimming lizard.
A swimming lizard.
That just seems wrong.
I know, it's crazy, but they've adapted to feed on algae in the water.
So they're like little reptilian surfers.
Kind of. And they even have special glands that help them get rid of all that excess salt.
That's incredible.
It is. And then there are the Galapagos penguins.
Now, this one I have to ask about.
Yeah.
Because penguins in the tropics.
I know it's mind-boggling, but they're there.
How is that even possible?
Well, they've adapted to the warmer climate, and they often hang out in the cool waters of the Humboldt Current.
So they found a way to beat the heat.
Exactly. They're like the ultimate survivors.
That's amazing. So we've got swimming lizards, we've got tropical penguins.
Mm-hmm.
What else can we expect to see in this evolutionary wonderland?
Well, you mentioned the giant tortoises.
Of course.
They can live for over 100 years.
Wow.
And they're just incredible creatures to see up close. You've also got flightless cormorants.
Flightless.
Yeah, they've lost the ability to fly because they don't really need to on the islands.
Huh. So they're like the ultimate couch potatoes of the bird world.
Pretty much. And they're actually really good swimmers.
So they traded their wings for flippers?
Exactly. And their feet are super strong, too.
Got to be able to waddle around somehow.
Right.
All right. Well, I am sold on the wildlife.
Good.
But now I need you to transport me to these volcanic landscapes.
Okay. Close your eyes and imagine
Right.
molten lava spewing from underwater volcanoes.
Ooh.
Hot.
Yeah.
It's a fiery beginning.
Okay.
And over millions of years, these eruptions slowly formed the Galapagos Islands.
Wow. So it's like a scene straight out of a National Geographic documentary.
Absolutely. And that dramatic history is still visible today.
What do you mean?
Well, think about it. You've got lava tunnels.
Like underground caves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Formed by flowing lava.
That's so cool.
You've got craters.
From the volcanic eruptions.
Yep. And these unique rock formations.
What kind of rock formations are we talking about?
I mean, some of them look like they belong on another planet.
Okay, you've got to give me an example.
Okay, so on the island of Isabella,
Okay.
there are these massive lava tunnels, and you can actually hike through them.
Whoa, so you're walking in the path of ancient lava flows.
I know. It's incredible to think about the forces that shaped these tunnels.
Yeah, it's got to be a humbling experience.
Yeah.
So it's not just about the wildlife, it's about the landscape, too.
It's the whole package.
A truly unique place.
Absolutely.
But with all this beauty comes a responsibility to protect it right.
Absolutely. Conservation is key in the Galapagos.
What are some of the biggest threats facing the islands?
Well, one of the biggest is invasive species.
Okay, what do you mean by invasive?
So these are plants or animals that are not native to the Galapagos. And they were introduced by humans either accidentally or intentionally.
And that causes problems.
Big problems because they can outcompete the native species.
Oh, so they were like bullies in the ecosystem.
Exactly. And they can disrupt the whole delicate balance.
So what kind of invasive species are we talking about?
Well, one example is feral goats.
Goats?
Yep. They were brought to the islands a long time ago and they multiplied like crazy. And they started eating all the native vegetation.
Just they were like little eating machines just destroying everything.
Pretty much. And that had a huge impact on the tortoises and other animals that rely on those plants.
So what happened?
Well, luckily, there's been a big effort to eradicate the goats from many of the islands.
Eradicate?
Yeah, get rid of them completely.
And how did they do that?
Well, it involved a lot of trapping and hunting and even using helicopters to track them down.
Wow, that sounds intense.
It was a huge undertaking, but it was a big success.
So the goats are gone now?
From many of the islands, yes.
That's good news for the tortoises.
Definitely.
What other threats are there?
Well, tourism is another big one.
Yeah, I could see how that could be a problem.
It brings in much needed revenue,
Of course.
but it also puts pressure on the environment.
More people, more footprints.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's all about finding a balance.
Sustainable tourism.
Right.
And then, of course, there's climate change
Yeah, that's the big one.
affecting the entire planet.
And the Galapagos are no exception.
So what's being done to protect the islands?
Well, there are a lot of organizations working hard on conservation.
Like who?
The Galapagos National Park is a big one,
Okay.
and the Charles Darwin Foundation.
What do they do?
Well, they do a lot of research and monitoring.
Mhm.
They work to control invasive species.
Like those goats we talked about.
Exactly. And they also promote responsible tourism.
So educating visitors about how to minimize their impact.
Right.
It's so important.
It is.
So what can our listeners do know if they're not scientists or park rangers?
Well, everyone can be a responsible traveler.
What does that mean exactly?
It means choosing tour operators that are committed to sustainable practices,
Okay.
following park rules,
Even the little ones.
especially the little ones,
Okay.
and just being mindful of your footprint.
So every little bit helps.
It really does.
All right. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
From the incredible wildlife
Mhm.
to the dramatic volcanic landscapes and the crucial conservation efforts happening there.
Very important.
So as we wrap up this duck dive into the Galapagos, I want to leave you with this question.
Okay.
Imagine yourself standing on the shores of these islands, surrounded by all this wonder.
It's magical.
What will you do to ensure its survival for generations to come?
It's a question we should all ask ourselves.
It is. Thanks for joining us on this journey to the Galapagos Islands.
It was my pleasure.
Keep exploring and remember to travel responsibly wherever you go.
Absolutely.
Until next time, happy travels.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the show, and be sure to tune in next week for your favorite episode about some of the best beaches and beach information in the world.